You know that specific sound a commercial HVAC unit makes when it's struggling against 98% humidity in Houston? It's a low, desperate thrum, a mechanical plea for mercy. I've listened to that sound for 16 years. I know when a compressor is about to die 3 days before it actually kicks the bucket. I know which elevators get sticky on the fourth floor when it rains. I know that the janitorial staff prefers the lemon-scented cleaner over the pine because the pine smells like cheap gin. My name is Ruth Templeton. To the tenants of the Metric Plaza, a mid-rise glass box of commercial real estate off the Katy Freeway, I am facilities. I am the woman in the beige blazer who nods when the toilet overflows or when the parking garage gate gets stuck. To the world, I am the operations manager. I am the help. What nobody in this building knows, except for a very expensive lawyer downtown and a retired old man currently fishing in the Florida Keys, is that I am also the landlord. Well, technically, the building is owned by Templeton Holdings LLC, a boring little shell company I formed 10 years ago when the original developers went bankrupt and panicked. I bought the debt, I bought the deed, and I kept my job. Why? Because I like control. Because it is fascinating to watch how people treat you when they think you earn 40 grand a year versus how they'd treat you if they knew you could evict them with a signature. Which brings me to Monday morning. The heat was already radiating off the asphalt at 7:30 a.m. I was in the lobby, checking the scuff marks on the terrazzo, when the doors slid open and a cloud of aggressive cologne assaulted my sinuses. Enter Colton Metrics. Colton is 32 years old, wears suits that are too tight in the ankles and too loose in the shoulders, and possesses the unearned confidence of a man who has never had to pay for his own car insurance. He is the son of Harlan Metrics, the founder of Harlan Metrics Logistics, which occupies the top 3 floors of my building. Harlan is a good man. Harlan is tired. Harlan decided to retire last Friday. Colton walked in like he was storming the beaches of Normandy. If Normandy had a valet service. He was flanked by 2 nervous-looking assistants carrying iPads like religious texts. Ruth, he barked, not breaking stride. He snapped his fingers at me, actually snapped them. The sound echoed in the empty lobby. Conference room. 10 minutes, all staff. Good morning, Colton, I said, keeping my voice level. We usually schedule all-hands meetings with at least 24 hours notice to ensure coverage at the front desk. He stopped and spun around on his heel. The rubber soles squeaked. It's not Colton anymore, Ruth, it's Mr. Metrics, and I don't care about coverage. I care about vision. 10 minutes. He marched toward the elevators, pressing the button 4 times as if that would summon the car faster. I watched him go, taking a slow sip of my black coffee. Look, before I get into the carnage that followed, my niece told me I should post this here because apparently, you people enjoy watching entitled Rich Kids Hit Reality like a bug on a windshield. So, if you want to see a trust fund baby get legally dismantled, maybe hit subscribe or whatever it is you do. It motivates me to type this out instead of just drinking wine and laughing at the security footage. I went to the conference room. I sat in the back, near the thermostat, because I control the temperature, and I like to keep it at a crisp 68 degrees during meetings to keep people awake. Colton stood at the head of the table, sweating slightly. My father built this company, Colton announced, looking at the 20 senior staff members gathered around the mahogany table. But he was old school, analog. We are moving to digital. We are pivoting. We are disrupting. He used a lot of words that meant absolutely nothing. Synergy, paradigm, granularity. I saw the VP of sales, a woman named Linda who has been moving freight since before Colton was born, rolling her eyes so hard I thought she'd detach a retina. Changes are coming, Colton said, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me, starting with the building itself. This place feels stagnant. I want to knock down the walls on the 12th floor. Open concept. Glass everywhere. I want energy. I cleared my throat, Mr. Metrics. Structural changes to the 12th floor require a permit from the city and approval from the building owner. Colton laughed. It was a wet, condescending sound. Ruth, don't worry about the paperwork. My father paid the lease here for 20 years. For all intents and purposes, we own this place. I'll handle the landlord. You just call the contractors. The landlord is very particular about load-bearing walls, I said softly. Landlord is a shell company that cashes checks, Colton sneered. I'm the new sheriff in town, Ruth. You're just facilities. You fix the lights, I provide the vision. Do we understand each other? The room went silent. Everyone looked at the floor. They were embarrassed for me. They thought I was being humiliated. I looked at Colton. I looked at his sweaty forehead, his cheap watch that he thought was expensive, and his trembling hands. I understand perfectly, I said, and I did. I understood that he hadn't read the lease. If he had, he would know that the lease for Harlan Metrics Logistics expired yesterday. It ended on Sunday. It was now Monday. Technically, he was trespassing. I opened my notebook and wrote down the date and time. 8:15 a.m. Tenant asserts ownership. Tenant threatens structural damage. Good, Colton said, clapping his hands. Now, get out. I have real business to discuss with the executive team. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and walked out of the room. As the heavy glass door closed behind me, I heard him say, God, she's such a dinosaur. We need to replace her with an app. I walked back to my office on the ground floor. It's a small office tucked behind the mailroom. It smells like paper dust and coffee. I sat down at my desk and unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside, there is a thick, leather-bound binder. I opened it to the very last page of the master commercial lease agreement for Suite 1000 to 1200. Expiration date, October 12, 2024. Renewal clause, tenant must provide written notice of intent to renew 90 days prior to expiration. Failure to provide notice constitutes a termination of tenancy. I checked the file. No letter. No email. Harlan had mentioned months ago that he wasn't sure what the future held, so he held off. Colton, in his rush to disrupt, hadn't bothered to check the foundational legal document that allowed his company to exist in physical space. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the building's security firm. "Hey Dave," I said, "it's Ruth. We need to update the access protocols. I think we might have a security issue brewing on the top floors." I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I felt that calm, cool clarity of a sniper adjusting for windage. He wanted to play sheriff? Fine. But he forgot that the sheriff serves at the pleasure of the mayor. And in this building, I am the mayor, the judge, and the executioner. Tuesday morning brought a cold front, dropping the Houston temperature to a frigid 75 degrees. But inside the Metrics logistics offices, things were heating up. I arrived at 6:45 a.m. as I always do. My routine is sacred. Unlock the main doors. Check the lobby floral arrangement, lilies this week, deathly and elegant, and review the overnight logs. But when I got to the front desk, I found Sarah crying. Sarah has been the receptionist for Harlan Metrics for 5 years. She's a sweet girl who remembers everyone's birthday and keeps a stash of chocolate for when the driver's coming off the road. "Sarah, honey, what's wrong?" I asked, putting my bag down. She looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. "He fired me." "Ruth?" "He sent an email at 2 o'clock a.m. Said he's replacing the front desk with a virtual concierge kiosk. He fired Mr. Henderson, too." Mr. Henderson was the 70-year-old logistics coordinator. The man had a map of the interstate highway system memorized better than Google Maps. "Colton fired Henderson?" I asked, my voice dropping an octave. "Yeah," said he was dead weight and didn't fit the youthful aesthetic of the new brand. I felt a sharp, metallic taste in my mouth. That was rage. Harlan Metrics treated his people like family. Colton treated them like furniture he wanted to take to the dump. "Go home, Sarah," I said gently. "Take a few days. Don't sign anything yet, just wait." "He told me to clear out by noon," she sobbed. "Go home," I repeated. "I'll handle it." I took the elevator up to the 12th floor. The doors opened and chaos greeted me. Movers were already there. Shady-looking guys in unmarked t-shirts, dragging desks across the carpet. They were piling ergonomic chairs into a heap near the fire exit. Colton was standing in the middle of the room, holding a Starbucks cup and pointing at a load-bearing column. "I want that gone," he was saying to a guy in dirty overalls. "It blocks the flow of Kai." "Colton," I said, stepping over a discarded monitor. He turned, annoyed. "Mr. Metrics, and what are you doing here?" "I didn't call for a toilet plunger." "You can't remove that column. It holds up the roof," I said flatly. "And you can't fire Sarah via email. Texas isn't at will state, but you have severance contracts." He laughed. "I can do whatever I want. I'm the CEO, and speaking of firing," he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. He tossed it at me. It landed on the floor between my sensible flats. "What is this?" I asked, not bending to pick it up. "Notice to vacate," he said, smirking. "I'm reorganizing the ground floor, too. I need your office for a bike storage room. You have until Friday to get your stuff out. We're outsourcing facilities management to a cloud-based service." I stared at him. The sheer, monumental stupidity was almost beautiful. It was like watching a star collapse. "You're evicting me?" I asked slowly. "I'm terminating your employment and reclaiming the space," he corrected. "My dad kept you around out of pity, Ruth, but I ran the numbers. You're an expense I don't need." I looked at the envelope on the floor, then I looked at the column he wanted to remove. "You're making a mistake, Colton. The only mistake was not doing this yesterday. Get out of my sight and take your bad vibes with you." I turned and walked to the elevator. I didn't pick up the envelope. I went back down to my office, the one he wanted to turn into a bike room. I locked the door, I pulled the blinds. Then I opened the safe behind the filing cabinet. Inside was the deed of trust for the property at 4400 Katy Freeway. Owner, Templeton Holdings LLC. Managing member, Ruth Templeton. I also pulled out the articles of incorporation for the building management company. Service agreement, irrevocable for 10 years, signed 2018. He couldn't fire me. I wasn't his employee. I was a contracted service provider with an ironclad exclusivity clause, and he couldn't evict me. I owned the dirt he was standing on. But the most damning document was the one I had checked yesterday, the lease. He was currently operating a business, storing millions of dollars of inventory, and attempting unauthorized demolition in a building where he had zero legal standing. I sat there for a moment, listening to the hum of the building. My building. He hurt Sarah. He hurt Mr. Henderson. He insulted me. If he had just been arrogant, I might have given him a warning. I might have called his lawyer and said, "Hey, you guys forgot to renew." We could have negotiated a rate hike, but he wanted to play hardball. He wanted to throw people out on the street. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It was the direct line to the City of Houston Code Enforcement. Specifically, grumpy inspector named Earl who owed me a favor from when I helped him navigate a zoning issue for his brother's auto shop. "Earl," I said when he picked up. "It's Ruth Templeton." "Ruthie, long time. What can I do for you?" "AC bust?" "No, Earl. I have a tenant attempting unpermitted structural demolition on a load-bearing element on the 12th floor. I'm worried about the safety of the building." "Say no more," Earl grunted. "I'm in the truck." I hung up. Then I opened my email client. I drafted a message to the external legal counsel for Harlan Metrics, a man named Marcus Thorne. He was a shark, but a shark who followed the rules. Subject: urgent. Lease status and unauthorized modifications. Dear Mr. Thorne, please find attached the current status of the lease for Suite 1000 to 1200. As you will see, the lease expired on Tuesday. We have received no renewal notice. Furthermore, please be advised that unauthorized construction is currently underway. All access to the freight elevators is hereby suspended pending a safety review. Regards, Ruth Templeton, Operations Manager. I didn't sign it owner. Not yet. I hit send. Then I opened the building control software on my desktop. I navigated to Elevator Banks Freight. Status active. I clicked the drop-down menu. Status locked/service mode. A few seconds later, I heard a distant, muffled shout from the lobby. The movers were stuck with a load of furniture they couldn't move. The game had officially begun. There is a distinct psychology to commercial buildings. They are designed to be invisible machines that keep you comfortable, safe, and productive. When they work, you don't notice them. When they stop working, civilization collapses within about 45 minutes. By Wednesday morning, Colton Metrics was about to learn just how fragile his civilization really was. Earl, the code inspector, had arrived Tuesday afternoon and slapped a bright orange stop work order on the glass doors of the 12th floor. He'd caught the contractor's mid-sledgehammer on a structural column. The fines were already racking up, aimed squarely at the tenant. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was the environment. Houston in July is not compatible with human life. It is a swamp trying to reclaim its territory. The only thing keeping the fungi at bay is the heavy-duty chillers on the roof. I sat at my desk, sipping an iced tea, looking at the Building Management System (BMS) interface. It's a beautiful grid of numbers and graphs. I navigated to Zone 12 Executive Suite. Current set point, 68 degrees F. Actual temp, 68 degrees F. I clicked on the occupancy schedule. Usually, it's set to occupied from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I changed it to unoccupied/weekend mode. In weekend mode, the system prioritizes energy efficiency. It lets the temperature drift up to a balmy 78 degrees and restricts airflow to minimize fan usage. It's not broken, it's just efficient. System updated, the screen blinked. I then moved to access control. Colton had issued new keycards to his inner circle of new hires. 3 guys named Chad, Brad, and Thad. I'm not joking, their names were actually indistinguishable variations of a frat roster. They had been strutting around the building, bypassing security checkpoints. I pulled up their badge IDs. Status, revoked. Reason, security audit/data mismatch. It wasn't a lie. Their data didn't match the leaseholder's authorized personnel list because, strictly speaking, there was no leaseholder. Around 10:30 a.m., my desk phone. It was the reception line, which I was now answering since Sarah was gone. "This is Ruth," I said, cheerful as a bird. "Ruth, fix the damn elevator." It was Colton. He sounded sweaty. "And why is it so hot in here?" "I'm sweating through my suit." "Oh, good morning, Mr. Metrics," I said, typing slowly on a keyboard that wasn't plugged in. "We're experiencing some high load demand on the grid today. The system automatically enters eco-conservation mode to prevent brownouts. It's a citywide protocol." That was a lie. A beautiful, unverifiable lie. "Well, override it. I have investors coming in an hour. I'm afraid I can't do that, sir. The system is hard-coded for compliance. As for the elevators, we're conducting a mandatory safety audit following the unauthorized construction attempts yesterday. The freight cars are offline until the structural engineer clears the shaft. This is unacceptable. I'll fire you. I swear to God, Ruth." "Done on Friday? I understand your frustration, Mr. Metrics. Would you like me to send up some portable fans? We have some in the basement. They're a bit noisy, though." He hung up. 30 minutes later, the VP of Operations, one of the few old guard left, a man named Bill, came down to my office. Bill looked tired. He closed the door and sat in the guest chair. "Ruth," he said quietly, "what is going on?" "The badges don't work. The AC is blowing lukewarm air. The toilets on the 11th floor are out of order. Is this? Are you doing this?" I looked at Bill. He was a good guy. He had photos of his grandkids on his desk. "Bill," I said, leaning forward, "do you have a personal email address?" "Yes, start forwarding your files today." He looked at me, confusion clouding his eyes, and then he saw the look on my face, the absolute lack of panic, the stillness. "He didn't renew the lease, did he?" Bill whispered. I took a sip of my tea. "I can't discuss confidential tenant matters, Bill, but I can tell you that the building takes care of its own. And right now, the building is rejecting a virus." Bill nodded slowly. He stood up. "I always liked you, Ruth." "I like you too, Bill. Take the stairs today. The elevators might get finicky." By 2 p.m., the investors arrived. I watched on the security camera. They were three serious men in gray suits. They walked into the lobby, and I buzzed them in. They got into the elevator. I let them go up. But when they stepped out onto the 12th floor, they were met with 79-degree heat, the smell of stale sweat colton, and the sound of industrial floor fans droning like angry hornets. I zoomed in on the camera. Colton was trying to look cool, but his shirt was plastered to his back. He went to swipe his badge to open the glass conference room doors. Red light, beep. He swiped again. Red light, beep. He kicked the door. The investors exchanged a look. It was the look people give when they realize they are about to waste their money. I picked up my phone and sent an email to Marcus Thorne, the lawyer. Subject: cease and desist harassment of facilities staff. Mr. Thorne, your client, Mr. Colton Metrics, has physically kicked building property and verbally abused staff regarding building protocols. Please remind him that damage to property is a violation of the expired lease terms. This is your second notice. I sat back. The chessboard was set. The king was sweating. The pawns were fleeing, and the queen was just getting started. There's a steakhouse in downtown Houston called the Capitol. It's dark, smells like mahogany and seared beef, and costs more for a salad than most people make in a day. It is where uncomfortable truths are delivered over expensive Cabernets. On Thursday, Marcus Thorne invited me to lunch. Marcus is the kind of lawyer who charges by the sneeze. He's sharp, impeccably dressed, and usually manages to intimidate anyone who doesn't have a Juris Doctor. He represents Harlan Metrics Logistics. He's been their counsel for years. He assumes, naturally, that he is the smartest person in the room. I wore my navy blazer and my grandmother's pearls. I arrived 4 minutes early. When Marcus slid into the booth opposite me, he looked annoyed. He checked his watch. Ruth, thanks for meeting me. Look, I have a deposition at 2, so let's make this quick. Of course, Marcus, I said, unfolding my napkin. Colton is excitable, Marcus began, signaling the waiter for a scotch. He's under a lot of pressure stepping into Harlan's shoes. He feels you're obstructing his transition. The AC issues the badges. It feels retaliatory. Maintenance is rarely convenient, Marcus. Cut the crap, Ruth, he snapped. We know you're upset about the staff changes, but you're a vendor. You work for the building management. You don't get to play moral police. If you don't get the systems back online by tomorrow, we're going to sue the management company for breach of contract and constructive eviction. He leaned back, looking satisfied. He thought he had played the ace. I smiled. It was a small, polite smile. Marcus, did you read the email I sent you on Tuesday? I skimmed it. Something about a renewal notice. We'll draft a retroactive extension. Standard procedure. Harlan forgot, big deal. It's not just that Harlan forgot, I said, reaching into my tote bag. It's that the entity Templeton Holdings, LLC, has decided to go in a different direction with the space. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a photocopy of the signature page of the lease renewal offer sent 6 months ago. Tenant signature. Blank date, blank. We sent this via certified mail in January, I said softly. We sent a reminder in March. We sent a final notice in May. No response. The lease expired on Tuesday at midnight. As of right now, your client is a holdover tenant, a trespasser. Marcus waved a hand dismissively. We'll pay the holdover penalty. 150% rent. We're not moving, Ruth. You can't just kick out a $20 million company because of a clerical error. I can, I said, because the owner doesn't want your money. The owner, Marcus laughed, some faceless investment group, I'll call them. We'll offer them 10% over market. Everyone has a price. You can't call them, Marcus. Why not? I pulled out the second document. The Articles of Organization for Templeton Holdings, LLC. I slid it across the white tablecloth. Marcus picked it up. He adjusted his glasses. He read the top line. Then he read the line listing the managing member. His eyes stopped moving. He froze. The color drained from his face, leaving him a sort of sickly beige that matched the walls. You, he whispered. You own the building? I own the building, I confirmed. I bought the note from the bank in 2014 when the original developers went belly up. Harlan knew. He had a handshake deal to keep it quiet because he didn't want the board to know his operations manager was also his landlord. It amused him. Marcus looked at me with new eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. He realized he had just threatened to sue the judge in her own courtroom. Ruth, he stammered. Ruth, look, we can fix this. Colton, he didn't know. Ignorance of the law is not a defense, Marcus. Isn't that what you tell people? He's just a kid. He's trying to make his mark. He fired Sarah, I said. He fired Henderson. He told me to clean out my desk by Friday. He called me a dinosaur. I took a sip of my iced tea. He wants me out by Friday? Fine. I want him out by Friday. That's impossible, Marcus choked out. The logistics. The servers. The inventory. That sounds like a logistics problem, I said. And frankly, his logistics team seems a bit thin right now, since he fired the competent ones. Ruth, please, Harlan will kill me. He'll kill Colton. Harlan is fishing, I said. I suggest you call him. And then I suggest you explain to your client that he doesn't own the castle. He's just a guest who overstayed his welcome. I placed a $20 bill on the table for my tea. I'm initiating formal eviction proceedings tomorrow at 9 a.m. You have until then to vacate voluntarily. If he's not out, I change the locks. All of them. I stood up. Enjoy your lunch, Marcus. I walked out of the steakhouse. The air outside was hot and heavy, but I felt light as a feather. Friday morning arrived with the inevitability of a hurricane. Marcus Thorne must not have had the courage to tell Colton the truth yet, or maybe he tried, and Colton was too busy disrupting to listen. Either way, the Boy King was still in the building, and he was getting desperate. I escalated the environment. At 8 o'clock a.m., the water pressure in the building experienced a sudden drop. The toilets on the 12th floor would now require 2, maybe 3 flushes. The break room sinks trickled like an old man with prostate issues. At 8:30 a.m., I instructed the janitorial crew to pause service for the executive suite due to safety concerns regarding the unauthorized construction zone. Trash cans were overflowing with Starbucks cups and takeout containers. The place smelled like stale coffee and entitlement. At 9 o'clock a.m., the mail carrier arrived. I met him at the dock. "Hey, Tony," I said. "Morning, Ruth. Got a mountain of stuff for metrics." "Hold it," I said. "There's a dispute regarding the recipient's tenancy. Return to sender or hold at the post office. We can't accept liability for packages delivered to a non-leaseholder." Tony shrugged. "You're the boss." He loaded the crates of Amazon boxes and overnight envelopes back into his truck. I went back to the lobby and stood behind the front desk, my front desk. Sarah wasn't there, and it felt empty, but I needed to be visible. Around 10 o'clock a.m., Colton stormed down the stairs because the elevators were still under maintenance. He looked ragged. His suit was wrinkled. He had sweat stains under his arms. He was followed by his frat boy trio who looked equally confused and damp. He saw me and marched straight for the desk. "You," he screamed, his voice cracked. "You sent the mail away. I got a notification. That was equipment. That was vital hardware." The lobby was full of people, couriers, staff from other floors. Visitors, everyone stopped to watch. "Mr. Metrics," I said, my voice projecting clearly, "I cannot accept mail for an entity that does not have a valid lease." "I have a lease," he shrieked. "I own this company. I own this building." "No," I said, "you don't. I'm going to call the police." He yelled, "I'm going to have you arrested for sabotage, for interference." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling 911. "I wouldn't recommend that," I said calmly. "Emergency services are for emergencies, Colton, not for tantrums." "Shut up," he dialed. He actually dialed. "Police," he shouted into the phone. "I want to report a theft, a hostage situation. My building manager has hijacked the building." He paused, listening. "What? No, she's not armed." "Well, she has a stapler." "No, I'm the CEO. My name is Colton Metrics." I watched him. The crowd watched him. He was unraveling. "They hung up on me," he said, staring at his phone in disbelief. "Imagine that," I said. "Listen to me, you old hag," he hissed, leaning over the counter. Spittle flew from his mouth. "My lawyer is fixing this. And when he does, I am going to make sure you never work in this town again. I will bury you. I will turn this lobby into a shrine to your failure." I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. "Colton," I said, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "Look at your shoes." He looked down. "What? They're scuffed," I said. "You're standing on my terrazzo." "Your terrazzo?" He laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. "You're delusional. Ask Marcus," I said. "Ask Marcus who signs the checks for the AC repairs. Ask Marcus who holds the deed." Just then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. It was Marcus. Finally, he answered on speaker. "Marcus, get down here. This woman is insane. She's blocking the mail." Marcus's voice came through the tiny speaker, tinny but clear. It sounded defeated. "Colton, shut up. Stop talking." Colton froze. "Excuse me? Get back upstairs. Do not speak to Ruth. Do not engage with her. I'm on my way. We have a catastrophic situation." "What situation?" Colton demanded, looking around at the staring crowd. "Colton," Marcus said, his voice heavy with the weight of impending doom. "We don't have a lease. She owns the building. She owns it all." The silence that followed was louder than the HVAC units on the roof. Colton looked at the phone, then he looked at me. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I smiled. A genuine, warm Texas smile. "Would you like a visitor's badge, Mr. Metrics? You'll need one to get back upstairs. Security protocol." The realization that your enemy holds the keys to your cage is a powerful sedative. Colton didn't scream after the phone call. He didn't yell. He took the visitor's badge I slid across the counter, his hands shaking so badly he dropped it twice, and walked toward the stairs like a man marching to the gallows. But I wasn't done. A verbal victory is satisfying, but a paper victory is permanent. I went back to my office and printed 3 copies of a document I had drafted the night before, notice of termination of tenancy and demand for possession. It wasn't a request, it was a legal sledgehammer. To Harlan Metrics Logistics / Colton Metrics from Templeton Holdings LLC Re. Immediate surrender of premises due to expiration of lease and failure to renew, combined with multiple violations of building code. See attached. Citation #4402B, unauthorized structural modification, and harassment of building staff. Your status as a tenant at will is hereby terminated effective immediately. I stapled the photos Earl had taken of the smashed column. I stapled the email where Colton threatened to fire me. I stapled the log of the security audit showing his frat boys trying to access the server room at 2 a.m. At 11:30 a.m., Earl stopped by again. He walked into my office, wiping sweat from his forehead with a rag. "How's it going, Ruthie?" "Quiet upstairs," I said. "You checking on the violation?" "Yeah, went up there." Kid is sitting in his office staring at the wall. The lawyer is there too. Looks like he's trying to explain quantum physics to a toddler. "Did they fix the column?" "Nope. They put some drywall over it to hide it." I slapped him with another fine, concealing a hazard. That's a big one. Also, I noticed they're storing lithium-ion batteries next to the fire exit. Fire marshal is gonna love that. You should probably call him, I suggested innocently. Already did. He's on his way. This is the thing about commercial real estate. It's a web of regulations. If you pull one thread, like trying to renovate without a permit, the whole web comes down on you. Colton didn't just annoy a landlord, he activated the immune system of the city bureaucracy. Around 12:30 p.m., Marcus Thorne came down to my office. He looked 10 years older than he had at lunch. He closed the door and didn't sit down. "Ruth, we need to talk terms." "Term is goodbye," I said, not looking up from my spreadsheet. "Be reasonable. You can't evict a company with 50 employees in 24 hours. It's impossible. It's not an eviction, Marcus, it's a non-renewal. The lease ended Tuesday. You are trespassing. I'm being generous by not calling the sheriff right now to escort you out." "Colton is. He's in a bad way," he called Harlan, "and Harlan is flying in. He'll be here tonight." I paused. Harlan, my old mentor. The man who taught me everything about logistics and who unknowingly taught me that you always keep the real estate in a separate LLC. "Harlan can come," I said, but the answer remains the same. The building is under new management protocols, and the current tenant is incompatible with the owner's vision. "What is the vision, Ruth? What do you want?" Marcus asked, desperate. "Money? Equity? A seat on the board?" I looked at him. "I want respect," I said, "and I want my building back. And I want the damage to the 12th floor repaired by a licensed contractor, paid for by you before you leave." "We can't move by tomorrow," Marcus pleaded. "You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow, that's Saturday. I'll give you the weekend to get the trucks in. But come Monday morning, if there is a single paperclip belonging to Metrics Logistics in Suite 1200, I will consider it abandoned property and auction it off." "Ruth." I handed him the notice of termination. "Served," I said. Marcus took the paper. He looked at it, sighed, and nodded. He knew the law. He knew they were dead in the water. "I'll tell him," Marcus said. "Oh, and Marcus, yes, tell Colton that if he kicks another door, I'm adding the replacement cost to his personal liability tab. I have it all on 4K video." Marcus walked out. I turned back to my computer. I opened the BMS system. I navigated to Zone 12 Executive Suite. I bumped the temperature up to 80 degrees, let them sweat. By 2 p.m. Friday, the word had spread. I don't know who leaked it, maybe Marcus, maybe Sarah, who I had texted, or maybe the walls just started talking. But everyone knew. The king was naked and the facility's manager had stolen his clothes. The office became an anthill that had been kicked over. Staff were running out with boxes. The frat boy trio was seen loading a foosball table into the back of a pickup truck in the loading dock. I authorized the freight elevator for move-out purposes only, just to be helpful. I stood by the loading dock with a clipboard, checking off items as they left. "Careful with that server rack," I told a sweating IT guy. "Don't scratch the door frame." He looked at me with pure awe. "Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am." Colton was nowhere to be seen. He was holed up in his office, presumably watching his empire dissolve. At 4 p.m., a black Lincoln Town car pulled up to the curb. The door opened and Harlan Metrics stepped out. He was 70 years old, tanned from the Florida sun, wearing a fishing shirt and linen pants. He looked like a man who had been interrupted in the middle of a very good margarita. He walked into the lobby. He saw me standing there. He stopped. He looked at the chaos, the movers, the panicked employees, the orange stop work sticker on the elevator. He shook his head and walked over to me. "Ruth," he said, his voice was gravel and whiskey. "Harlan," I nodded. "I leave for 5 days," he said. 5 days, and I come back too? Your son fired Sarah, Harlan, and Henderson, and he tried to knock down the structural column on the 12th floor. Harlan closed his eyes. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "The column, the one near the break room." He said it blocked his kai. Harlan let out a long, shuddering sigh. "And the lease expired Tuesday. No renewal sent, and you?" "I exercised my right as the owner to reclaim the property." Harlan looked at me. For a second, I thought he might yell. He was a tough businessman. He didn't like losing. But then a small, wry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Templeton Holdings," he muttered. "I forgot about that. I always thought you'd sell it. It's a good asset," I said. "Steady yield. Usually, Ruth." "You're killing me here. The disruption? This will tank the quarter." "Colton tanked the quarter when he decided to treat the people who run his world like garbage," I said firmly. "I'm just the consequences." Harlan looked at the ceiling. "Where is he?" "Upstairs, probably sweating. It's 80 degrees up there." "Why is it 80 degrees? Eco mode," I said deadpan. Harlan chuckled. It was a dry, rusty sound. "All right. Let's go see the boy genius." Rode the elevator up in silence. The car smelled like fear and cardboard. When we walked onto the 12th floor, it was a ghost town. Desks were cleared. Wires dangled from the ceiling. The drywall patch over the damaged column looked like a scar. Colton was in the glass-walled conference room with Marcus. When he saw his father, he jumped up like he'd been electrocuted. "Dad, thank God, you have to stop her. She's insane. She sabotaged the building. She locked us out. Harlan walked into the room. He didn't look at Colton. He looked at the view of the Houston skyline. Colton, Harlan said softly. She's lying about the lease. Marcus said we can sue, we can. Shut up, Harlan said. It wasn't a shout, it was a command. Colton's mouth snapped shut. Did you fire Sarah? Harlan asked. She was redundant. I was streamlining. Did you try to knock down a load-bearing wall? It was an open concept. Harlan turned to face his son. The disappointment in his eyes was heavier than the humidity outside. You didn't read the lease, did you? That's what we pay lawyers for. Colton pointed at Marcus. Marcus held up his hands. I sent him the renewal packet in January and March. He told me to stop bothering him with admin trivia. Harlan looked at Ruth. He looked at me standing in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing my beige blazer. She owns the building, Colton, Harlan said. She has always owned the building, and you just tried to evict the landlord. Colton looked at me. He looked at his dad. The reality finally, truly sank in, but she's just facilities, he whispered. She's the reason this company ran for 20 years, Harlan said, and now she's the reason we're moving. Moving, Colton squeaked. To where? I don't know, Harlan said. That sounds like a logistics problem. And since you're the CEO, fix it. Harlan turned to me. Ruth, we have until Monday morning to get the heavy stuff out. I looked at Harlan. We had history. Monday at 8 a.m., I said, sharp. After that, the locks change. Fair enough, Harlan said. Then he looked at Colton. Start packing, son, and be careful with the boxes. You're paying for the damages. Saturday was a blur of activity, but I wasn't part of it. I sat in my office, door open, watching the parade of defeat. Movers, real ones this time, hired by Harlan. Stripped the 10th, 11th, and 12th floors. I watched my building being cleansed. It felt like a fever breaking. Sunday came, the deadline was approaching. I came in at noon. The building was silent. The trucks were gone. I took the elevator up to the 12th floor. It was empty. The glass walls reflected the harsh Texas sun. The carpet still held the indentations of desks that had been there for a decade. The air was still warm, but the frantic energy was gone. Walked to the executive office. The door was open. Colton was there. He was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, holding a box of personal items, a stress ball, a framed photo of himself, a stapler. He looked up when I entered. He looked exhausted. His suit was gone, replaced by a t-shirt and jeans. He looked like a child. You won, he said. His voice was hollow. It wasn't a competition, Colton, I said, standing over him. It was a business arrangement. You violated the terms. My dad is removing me as CEO, he said, staring at the carpet. He's stepping back in. He says I'm not ready. He's right. I just wanted to make it better, he muttered. I wanted to make it modern. You broke it, I said. You don't modernize a machine by smashing the gears. You oil them, you respect them. He looked at me with genuine curiosity. How did you do it? How did you afford this place? I saved, I said. I invested. And I didn't spend my money on cars I couldn't drive or suits that didn't fit. And I treated people with respect, so when I needed a favor from a code inspector or a lawyer or a janitor, they gave it to me. He stood up. He picked up his box. I'm sorry, he said. It sounded forced, but it was there. About Sarah, about everything. Sarah has already been hired by the building management company, I said. She starts Monday as my assistant, with a raise. He blinked. Oh, give me the keys, Colton. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the master key ring. The one that gave access to the executive suite, the server room, everything. He handed them to me. The metal was warm from his hand. I closed my fist around them. They felt heavy. They felt like victory. The freight elevator is waiting, I said. He walked out. He looked small in the empty hallway. I watched him go. I heard the elevator ding. I heard the doors slide shut. I was alone. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the Katy freeway, the river of cars flowing endlessly. I pulled out my phone and called the BMS system. Zone 12, mode occupied, set point 72 degrees F. I heard the hum of the air conditioning kick in. The vents sighed with relief. The cool air began to flow. I walked over to the spot where he had tried to remove the column. The drywall patch was ugly, but the column underneath was steel. Wasn't going anywhere. Neither was I. On Monday morning, the lobby was quiet. The frantic energy of the Metrics logistics staff was gone. The unauthorized frat boys were gone. The smell of desperation was gone, replaced by the scent of fresh lilies, white ones today for peace. Sarah was at the front desk. She looked radiant. She had a new nameplate, Sarah Jenkins, Assistant Operations Manager. Good morning, Miss Templeton, she beamed. Good morning, Sarah, I smiled. How's the new system? It's wonderful and quiet. I went into my office, which was definitely not a bike room, and made a pot of coffee. Around 9 a.m., my phone rang. Ruth, it was Harlan. Morning, Harlan. How's the move? We're in we work downtown, he grumbled. It's terrible. The coffee tastes like battery acid and everyone is wearing headphones, but we're operational. Good to hear. Listen, Ruth, he paused. I want to say thank you for evicting you. For teaching him, I tried to tell him, I tried to show him, but he needed to hit a wall. You were the wall. He'll learn, I said, eventually. Maybe, Harlan sighed. And Ruth, about the building. Yes, I knew you bought the note in 2014. The bank called me for a reference. I told them you were the only person in Texas I'd trust with the keys. I felt a lump in my throat. I hadn't known that. Why didn't you tell me? Because you didn't need my permission. Harlan said you earned it, just like you earned this victory. Enjoy the quiet, Ruth. I will, Harlan. I hung up. I took my coffee and walked out to the lobby. I stood in the center of the terrazzo floor. I looked up at the atrium, at the glass and steel rising around me. It wasn't just a building. It was a machine. It was a fortress. And I was the keeper. I saw a scuff mark on the floor where Colton had dragged his heels. I pulled a rag out of my pocket. I bent down and rubbed it. It came right off. The building was clean. The building was mine. I took a sip of coffee. Black, no sugar, perfect. Real power doesn't announce itself. Ruth didn't need to shout to show who truly held the deed to that building. It's a powerful reminder that competence and quiet strategy always trump bluster and entitlement. Appreciate you all for sticking through this one. See you in the next story.